Good morning. This is Bill from Curious Cars on a really shitty, muggy November morning. In the scheme of things, it's not that bad. If I was getting this morning in July, I'd be absolutely thrilled. But the fact is, it's November, and for November, it's an incredibly shitty morning. To some effect, you can blame that on this tropical storm, another one that we have running through the Gulf right now, and it supposedly brings all this humid weather with it, and that's true. It's been, my glasses are fogging up again. We had like 2 weeks of decent weather, but at the moment, it's back to absolute shit. And, what the hell are you going to do? I had a plan for that, by the way. Oh, let me get into this real quick. So what I've got today is a 1969 Mercury Cougar convertible. And finally, this is one of my own cars, so I don't have to worry about offending some guy I'm selling a car for and bring a trailer, which, by the way, I really don't like doing. I mean, it's happening. Like, people are just calling me and making it happen. I have no interest in it at all. I want to do nothing but crawl in a hole somewhere, and instead I'm working and doing stuff I don't really want to do, but I'm doing it anyway. But when I do a video for one of those cars, I just don't feel right going on about all my shitty friends and all the other stuff. People, the guy's, I hired this guy to sell my car, and he's, talking about Asian massage. So, it doesn't work. But here, this Cougar, I own this thing, so I'm free to do whatever the hell I want. If the sound quality sucks and the video sucks, I apologize. Problem is, my normal camera broke. The one that I've been using for years that I absolutely love. It's gone completely shit. So I ordered a replacement that I thought was, the modern version of the one that I had. And when I got it in, it turned out to be the size of the friggin' Titanic. I mean, ridiculously big. So I can't really use that. So I'm using the iPhone. I have some microphones set up that my friend Sean, the wheel guy, said I should get. And I don't know. We'll see if it keeps going. But I don't like this. I'm going to probably just go on eBay and find a used version of the old camera I used to have and go back to it. But anyway, so here I am. I'm freed up to, talk about the shit that I want to talk about. And we're going to do that right now before we get into the 69 Cougar. So for one thing, first of all, Gen X. I've been here, there's a couple days after the big election. I'm not going to get into politics, and I'm not going to take sides. It's suffice to say I'm happy enough. But I've been hearing that Gen X had a lot to do with the results, and people wondered why, and, that's fine. I will tell you right now, hose water is delicious, okay? We were raised on hose water and neglect, as they say, and that is true. I mean, my mom, who was even more attentive than most probably, she's still, I was riding my bike to school at age 4. Or 5 or whatever, across big streets. And, they just let you go. There were no phones. There was none of that stuff. Today, I watch, like, at these schools around as I'm driving to work, hundreds of cars lined up in the drop-off lane as parents drop their little crappy kids off at school. Man, take the bus, for Christ's sake. I've had this argument with Chris a bunch of times. Worst human on earth, who now works for FEMA, by the way. Turns out they have plenty of XXL jackets at FEMA, but anyway, he works there, and he was always dropping his kid off, who's the most spoiled kid on earth. And I don't want my kid to hate me. Man, that kid is going to put him in the nursing home, the one where fire ants eat people. I promise you that. He will have no trouble doing that. Doesn't matter if Chris spent his whole life dropping the kid off at school instead of making him take the bus or ride his bicycle, which he should be doing. That kid is going to let Chris get eaten by fire ants. And frankly, I hope I'm around to see it. I really do. But that's another story. But anyway, so the hose water was really delicious. It had a nice tang to it. And I'll tell you right now that kids are missing out. Today, God knows, they're probably drinking like triple filtered water from the Swiss Alps or, whatever their mothers give them. And anyway, look, it is what it is. But I am going to tell you right now that as a Gen X guy, the hose water tasted pretty good. I'm on coronavirus moonshine this morning, and I know it's not real moonshine because it was legal. I bought it in North Carolina in a trip that I took up there this summer. And that was my little plan was, man, I am going to escape the hot Florida summers and hurricanes by going and getting a cabin somewhere in rural North Carolina. Well, obviously that plan, has run into some, it's still in effect, but it's run, it's run into a few hitches. Obviously North Carolina isn't as immune from hurricanes as I might have thought it was. But I'm still gung-ho, I'm still gonna do it. And with any luck, I'll be doing videos from North Carolina next summer in much better weather than, what we have here in Naples. What else can I go? Last night, I asked my lady friend, she's doing this Instacart thing. She loves that because it makes normal shopping even way more expensive. And I said, look, while you're there, get me a couple of 12 packs of Cokes for the shop because all my, blood-sucking friends come in and drink Cokes and, don't pay for them, don't leave them, they never replenish them, they just take them. But, I want to have them too, so I, keep them in the fridge. She ends up getting me one pack of those mini Cokes, the ones you get if you're an alcoholic and you mix them with rum, like 8-ounce Cokes. And the reason is she doesn't care if I live or die. She didn't put any thought into it at all. She just, saw the first Coke that turned up on Instacart and bought it. And I found that this is a theme in my life. She had been nagging me for some time to make out a will, which I did. And I sat there in front of LegalZoom on the computer making out the will. I left shit to her, which is fine. But then it said, what if she dies? You got to name somebody else to, get your stuff. So I started to type, and then I man, there's nobody. There's absolutely nobody that I want to give anything to in my life. Nobody. I went through all the names. My nephew, screw him. Chris, absolutely not. Al, the wheel guy, all of them. And I just, I ended up with Robert the Pollock of all people. I mean, a guy who was in competition with Chris to be the worst human on earth, but he's more deserving than anyone that I know, to end up with something. So I made him my, secondary benefactor. And, it just is an absolute indictment of how horribly that I've lived my life. And anyway, look, I'm just going to keep going. I did get an Apple Watch. Okay, my nephew gave it to me. I don't know, there it is. And, obviously I don't feel particularly manly wearing it, but I figure I'm obligated since it was a present. But the thing is freaking me out because it keeps giving me medical emergencies. Like I'll be sitting down at my desk or, lounging somewhere, and all of a sudden it will say, hey, your heart rate's through the roof. Do you want me to alert EMS or something? Siri gets really concerned. And it freaks me out. So I end up just pulling the thing off and throwing it in the corner somewhere and then taking it up again later. So I absolutely don't recommend getting an Apple Watch unless you want to, feel like your health is really taking a turn for the worse, which apparently mine is. What else? So anyway, where have I been? Why haven't I been doing videos? Well, again, I went to North Carolina. My plan was to get a place there, and, obviously the hurricanes have all screwed that up a little bit. After that, I went to the Keys and had a really weird trip that wasn't much fun at all, which is quite strange for the Keys. And then I came back and I thought, man, I am going to be gung-ho. I am going to start doing, I've got like 15 cars. I'm going to get them ready. I'm going to do videos on them. This is exciting. Can't wait. That was Gary who walked in, an old friend of mine and a conspiracy theorist. And I got to tell you that he's an absolute lot of fun. I mean, if you want to find out, how we're all being manipulated by the powers that be in government, Gary is the guy to talk to. He'll let you know. But anyway, so where the hell was I? Came back gung-ho. I was going to do everything I could to make, and I'd walk out, I'd start getting the car ready, my glasses would fog up, I'd be dripping with sweat, and I'd say, you know what, screw it, it's too damn hot, I can't do it, I'm done. And I'd walk back inside, and that was that. And only in the last couple weeks, as the weather turned enough, to where I felt like I could do something. I mean, and it was an absolute reason why it justifies my plan to go up there during the summers, because I find myself counting the days until cooler weather arrives. I'm wishing away entire summers. And that is just no way to live. I mean, I'm too damn old to be wishing any part of my life away. So clearly, I've got to get out of town in summer and do something so I can actually live. I mentioned Chris with FEMA, oh my God, sucking up our tax dollars while he lounges in hotel rooms getting fatter, which is just absolutely wonderful, pathetic. 67 cents a mile they get driving around. Anyway, I could feel the moonshine affected me. So look, I'm just going to get right back into the car. What I've got today is a 1969 Mercury Cougar convertible. And it's a car I picked up a few months ago. And, I saw it on the internet. I bought it online, sight unseen, other than a few terrible photos. And I didn't know what was going to show up. And I was very pleasantly surprised when it turned out to be a nice car. I put the wheels and tires on it. It came with the original hubcaps, which are kind of hideous. And I thought, well, it needs these, so I did that and, gave it a little cleanup and a few bits and pieces. And now I'm going to run it through that premier auction here coming up in early December. But I've enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed driving it a little bit, which is interesting. I mean, Cougar is a great name, for one. First of all, it refers to a certain type of broad that's interesting to read at a bar, so you got that. Of course it's a cat, but look, we'll get into the history of it real quick. So Lincoln Mercury, it was their attempt at making a Mustang. When Ford was pushing around the idea of making a Mustang, they called it the T5 project. Ford came up with a design and Lincoln Mercury came up with a design, and this was essentially an earlier version, the Lincoln Mercury design. Ford ended up picking the Mustang. Lincoln and Mercury did keep developing the Cougar. And finally, in 1967, they got the green light to make it, built on the success of the Mustang. And they positioned it just right. Mercury's it's never really had a great identity. It's always sort of been like a high-scale Ford or a low-scale Lincoln. They've had a few random successes, but, nothing really to tip your hat to. Well, the Cougar changed that. I mean, it was instantly popular. They expected to sell like 50, 60,000 of them. Instead, they sold like 120,000. People bought them up like crazy. They were positioned absolutely perfectly between the Mustang and the Thunderbird. It was more luxurious than a Mustang, bigger than a Mustang, better equipped than a Mustang. Not quite where a Thunderbird was, which was kind of a luxury car at the time. But just absolutely perfect, and the price point was good, and people just went nuts for them. It's the first Mercury that had hidden headlamps, which is kind of interesting. Absolutely love them on this car and the earlier versions. It had almost every available Mercury option at the time, so you could really get these things loaded out, and it just worked. It was sold as the man's car. That was their marketing shtick, which is kind of funny because I think a lot of people saw it as a woman's car. In fact, it was driven by that Contessa in Her Majesty's Secret Service. I think she had a red 69 XR7, and whatever. But yeah, it was marketed towards men. And again, in the first year, they sold 150,000 units, and it became Motor Trend's Car of the Year, which was a much bigger deal back then. So Mercury was just absolutely giggling in their, successes. It would eventually account for 40% that year of Lincoln Mercury sales, and it propelled the Cougar to the top tier spot at Mercury, to the point that a decade or more of their advertising became based around, cat shticks. You had Cheryl Tiegs talking about joining the cat set years later. And, they named other cars after cats, the Lynx, the Bobcat, that sort of thing. So the cat thing became a pretty big deal. But, Ford just always throws Mercury under the bus. I don't know. They saw the success of the Cougar, And they built the Mustang Grande. I think I'm saying that right. It's maybe not Grande. And I don't know if they put an accent on it, but basically a personal luxury Mustang that was meant to compete with the Cougar and eat into the Cougar's sales. I mean, talk about in-house sabotage. And they built that from 69 to 73, which was the absolute heyday of the Cougar. So it's just an eternal thing. Apparently, it's not the first time that Ford did that to Mercury. But Mercury did have its moment in the sun, and this Cougar would become the best-selling Mercury of all time and get built for generations, many generations of Cougar, going up all the way to the end of things when Ford, gave up building Mercuries altogether. So God bless him. It was a pretty good car for him. Let's have a look under the hood. We're going to start there. All right, so what we have here is a 351 Cleveland. No, we don't. I'm sorry. This is a 351 Windsor. The 351 Cleveland came out, maybe a couple years later, replaced this one. There are always V8s and Cougars, but a wide variety. There are the 289, the 302, the 351, the 390, Windsors, Clevelands, even 428 Cobra Jet engines, went into the Eliminator version of the Cougar on option, didn't have to have it. They had a Ram Air thing, they had a, spoiler in the back. The Eliminator was a pretty cool muscle car in 69. Like Mustang, it bridged the gap between a pony car and a muscle car and became the latter. When it came out, it was the former. So huge amount of, engine options in these things over the years. Transmission options, basically you had a 3-speed automatic, 3-speed manual, 4-speed manual, same old stuff. But, you could set these things up to be pretty hot-rodded, and, some of them really were. I mean, you can get into a 69 Eliminator with Ram Air, 429 Cobra Jet, twin 4 barrels. Those things are through the roof in value. The other ones, not so much, they're just more normal. But anyway, you can see this one's pretty nice under the hood. It was an original AC car, but somebody put vintage air in it, I guess, to make it more efficient. And, again, I was just pleased with this thing. It kind of had a vibe that it would be on like Uncle Bob's used car lot in 1983. It came out of rural North Carolina before the floods. I got it here back in, I don't know, July or August. And, it just has this great preserved look to it. Apparently it had been one family for years. Love the hidden headlamps. They actually seem to work pretty good, even if they're not lined up perfectly, but that's hard to do. And everything looking pretty good under there. So, all right, let's have a look in the trunk. But, basically, it's just all Mustang underneath. They stretched the wheelbase a little bit, but, that's really about it. All right, so here in the trunk, everything looking pretty original. You can see all the undercoat back there. I think that might be the original mat. Don't hold me to it, and it probably isn't. It just can't be. But either way, it definitely has been this way for a long time. There you see the original hubcaps that the car came with that I replaced with these wheels. A little bag of parts that you get with any old car, and it's got them there. Set of books I'll get into a minute. And then I bought this Marty report for it. There's a guy named Kevin Marty who makes... Ford was going to throw out all their old records or get rid of them, of all the cars that they'd sold, Mustangs, and, that era, like mid-60s to mid-70s. And this guy Marty, Kevin Marty, said, no, man, let me take these things. And he ended up with a contract, preserved all the records, and now you can shoot him some money, and he will send you the statistics on your car. So if we look at this one, we have the original window sticker, which is kind of cool. Well, not original, repro, but it's, what was original to this car. You can see it was $4,400, which wasn't cheap at the time, by the way. Basically, the convertible was the same price as an Eliminator coupe. In light aqua, 351, vinyl rear window. And I liked seeing this because it showed that this car was still pretty much exactly as it came. Nobody had changed the color or the interior or something else, the engine. It was all the way it came, and I thought that was cool. They give you a reproduction VIN sticker there, and then this thing which tells you, you know, how many were made that were like this and what it had, and you get into it. And it turns out there were just 25 of these things made exactly the way that this one is, out of 100,000 Cougars sold in '69. So, you know, pretty rare combo. Love the color, and think that was all pretty cool. So anyway, there's the Marty report. Under that, you can see even the spare tire is this old Goodyear polyglass thing, which seems pretty original to me. It's been on the ground, but, you know, that is an ancient tire. And it just made, you know, it's part of the love that I had for this car was that it just seems so well preserved. You see those sequential taillights, which I demonstrated, I think, at the beginning of this video. Nicely inlaid chrome bumpers, because we're pre-chrome bumper law, so they fit nicely with the car. You get down under here, you get into the gas cap. Obviously, I like the vertical slats in it. That changed all the horizontal stuff from the first 2 years. You could see they added a big swooping body line, almost like Buick did, the way they differentiated themselves from Chevy. You know, looks very Buick-esque, but looks good on the car. They had now vertical slats on the grill with the Cougar badge there on the passenger side. Again, a nicely integrated front bumper, very muted, very proper. Nice trim around the grill, looking good. You got marker lights on the bottom and on the side of the fender. Lovely chrome mirrors, lovely chrome surround on the windshield. You got your power antenna there. The Magnum 500 wheels, I think, were a nice touch. You know, kind of set the car off properly in a way that those hubcaps didn't. You know, big external chrome door handles that look good. I ordered this white tonneau cover for it. It has a white convertible top, which we'll put up in a minute. But all in all, I think it's a pretty handsome car. And so did America, because they bought a ton of them. Again, Mercury's most successful car ever, and I think it looks great. So I'm going to pause it there, get all my crap together, then we're going to hop inside, have a look at that, and go for a spin. Bear with me one moment. All right, so let's go for a drive. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pop off this this tonneau cover here, and we're going to run the top when I hop in. Let's see if I can get that going. See the way that works? It just all slides into that. Oh, it's stuck in there, of course, because why wouldn't it be? Everything's just a pain in the ass these days. All right, let's get that off. Oh, for the love of God. All right, there we go. All right, now the top will come up when we fire it up. But having a look inside, so there's that big push-button door handle. You can see nicely styled, and sorry about the sun. Started too late, but a nicely styled door panel. It's got bucket seats and a center console, which is nice. Believe it or not, you could actually get bench seats in these things, and a lot of people did, which is just a crime against humanity. Some also had a tilt-away steering wheel, which was cool. This doesn't, but if you open the door, it would release a solenoid that would let you push the wheel, you know, like in the old T-Birds or what. Kind of a neat Ford trick. The back seat, if you're going to go to your Loverboy concert, the Canadians are going to be chipper enough. You know, pretty roomy, lots of good leg room. Part of the Cougar mystique was that they added to the wheelbase of the Mustang. And you have a couple ashtrays on either side because people smoked then, and even some seat belts. So, and you know, I know it's not perfect in here, but for the most part, let me zoom out. For the most part, it's the way that it came, and that's what I think is so cool, because so many of these cars have been restored. This one isn't. I mean, it's like a real original car that had a paint job, and I think that's just neat. You know, the wear on the console and whatnot, it's all, you know, all very real and honest. Still had the original owner's manual with it. It was bent in the glove box. I've had weights on it, and I still can't make it straight, but anyway, there it is. Also came with some stuff the guys must have bought, a warranty booklet and wind noise leaks, 5 volumes of Shopman. Nice stuff to have with the car. Anyway, let's fire it up. So the key's down there. Yeah, that 351 Windsor fires right to life. It's got window cranks. You could have gotten power windows, but they didn't. Frankly, I think that's fine because for those rear quarter windows in the convertibles, power is always screwed up. The regulators for the manual windows are much more reliable. You got a pretty decent set of gauges. You don't. I mean, look, you could get them much more sporty if you wanted to. This one doesn't. It's got the fuel gauge on the far left, the temp gauge, which I'm thankful for, on the far right, and then your speedometer, 120 miles an hour, and just a blank gauge where a tack would go. So definitely could have had a better gauge package, but it's fine. It does have air conditioning, so you get the vents. I don't actually know what these are, if they're warning lights or what. I've never seen them do anything. Somebody put a upmarket Bluetooth, old-looking radio in it. It works. It's fine. Nice add-on. And then down there where the original AC controls would have gone is the vintage air controls, which is definitely a much more proper system. You get, of course, mirror for looking behind you. I like the nifty little, because there are no retractable seat belts then, you had a little place to stick your seat belts. You got a cigarette lighter here because, again, people smoked. Center console, place to put a small 38. You could probably even fit a 357 or possibly a small 1911 in there. If you want to run the top, it's this button here. I'm going to push that while I turn this around. You see it come up. And again, not being a modern top, instead of all the hydraulic silliness, just a couple nice electric motors or whatever the hell it has. It works great, and it's really easy to use. And there it is. So let me seal that in place. I'll show you around outside the car so you can see the top, but I think I'm going to put it back down for the drive. But there you go. White convertible top, vinyl rear window as indicated on the window sticker, and suits the car nice. It would also look nice with a white interior, which you could have got, but I think the light aqua interior is much rarer and kind of cool. Alright, so let me get that back down. That's a pretty normal affair with these little pull handles, and now we just push forward and back it goes. And there's our... What the hell is that? A radio making weird noises. I'll turn that off. So down here you got your wipers, you got your lights, and just a nice floor shifter. And away we go. Wasn't the radio at all. It was the drop phone I had in my pocket, which was screwing me up. Making strange noises. It was great. I love that. Love mysteries. So I'm doing videos. This one has power steering and brakes. It's got front disc brakes, which is nice. Wishbone suspension up front, independent. Obviously floating solid axle in the back on leaf springs, which is quite normal for the time, and it was considered a very good handling car in its day. Obviously not like today's cars, but in its day it was considered to be a pretty good handling, good driving car, and I can attest to that. It's been pretty fun to drive and holds the road really well, and the steering is very nice and gentle. We've got all this lunacy going on here. Every time I leave Peter's house, it's just a row of stupid trucks and people walking into the road, and God, there's just a lot of hate in my heart these days. All those boxes. Hopefully they're building some kind of a detention center for children. Could be after the election. It's time to start building the camps. I don't know if we just start doing that or if we wait for a heads up from someone. Also, I'm looking forward to subjugating women. But anyway, so the thing drives really good. This one's never been modified as far as I can tell. I'm sure it's had some carb work because the original carb would be pretty tired by now. But this one isn't. And it just goes down the road lovely, man. The steering is light and simple. It doesn't, maybe you'd want it a little bit tighter if you're going to be sportier. But, for an American mid-size compact, whatever you want to call it, pony car slash personal luxury car. It drives just about perfect. Exactly what you'd want. And these things make great collector cars because, you know, based on Mustangs, the parts are really cheap and plentiful, certainly for all the mechanicals. There's quite a few dedicated sellers out there who just specialize in these Cougars, and I was able to get a few parts from them with no problem. And you know, they built what, 150,000, 67, still 100,000 and 69, so still a lot of donor cars out there as well. And having the modern AC in this car is nice, really nice. You know, what can I tell you? You got the top down, you know, you feel pretty good. This one is not a super high performance muscle car, but it's got plenty of V8 pep. And goes down the road pretty well. You know, the transmission shifts nice, and it's just a great cruiser, which is, you know, more or less what it was intended to be from the get-go. I'm not heading into work today. I'm going to where I store some cars, so it's not a really interesting drive. So I'm not going to spend a bunch of time driving it. But you get the idea. I mean, this drive is pretty much like any drive. You just cruise down the road. You got some nice cold AC going. You're looking pretty good. People give you the thumbs up. And you're different from a Mustang, which is kind of neat. You really just don't see as many Cougars out there as you do. Well, I guess you do in the bars, but on the road, you just don't see as many Cougars as you do Mustangs. And it gives you a little bit of a difference. And the sequential taillights, man, they're just cool. They're just very cool. So anyway, there it is. 1969 Cougar convertible. This one's going to be for sale at the Premier Auction December 6th and 7th in Punta Gorda. If you have an interest in that, it's not hard to find. Just Google it. I'll put a link in there. And, oh, God. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys having a look. I've got more fun stuff coming up, which we'll get to. And, you know, we'll get back to normal. The good weather hopefully will bring an improvement to my motivational desire to actually get out and do this kind of stuff. So thank you for having a look. We'll see you with the next one. Take care.